It's Tuesday, July 2nd, tonight. The issue of elderly care. What options are available to adults who suddenly find themselves caring for a loved one? Next on North Carolina Now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shannon Vickery. Thanks for joining us. As North Carolina's population grows older, a new industry is taking shape to provide services to the elderly. Tonight, we'll see how one North Carolinian navigated the system to get care for a loved one with Alzheimer's. But we begin tonight with the issue of elderly care. Caring for an elderly parent can be a daunting task, especially if you live hundreds of miles apart. But now there are more and more choices to choose from, thanks to a growing number of services and programs for the elderly, including a new profession called care managers. As Kelly McHenry reports, that's good news for baby boomers who find themselves increasingly caught between caring for their children and their aging parents.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you again.
Larry Gerst is one of legions of baby boomers with aging parents in need. His mother, Patricia, in her late 70s, suffers from an advanced case of Alzheimer's. She was staying in a rest home near Larry's brother in New York. But when that brother passed away, Larry knew it was time to make a change.
There was no one who could really look in on her and come to be with her and to check in on her. So I faced a multitude of problems. A, how to actually transport my mother from New York City to the Triangle, and B, once I did get her here, in what sort of facility would I place her?
That is when he contacted professional geriatric care manager Cheryl Theriault.
I offer myself as a one-stop shopping kind of person.
Theriault is Raleigh's first ever care manager. She oversees every aspect of care for an aging parent, from finding a rest home to managing medication.
I start with an assessment where I'm gathering information about their current capacities, their housing, their emotional and physical health, their financial and legal manners, and what kind of shape those things are in.
With a degree in geriatric social work, Theriault launched Aging Family Services back in 1993. Often the first phone call she receives is from people with an emergency on their hands.
Oh boy, I asked her help. Basically, it was a cry for help. I had this whole, I wouldn't call it a nightmare, but a very taxing and trying situation on my hands.
For many people, finances can be the biggest hurdle. Rest homes run the gamut from basic care to expensive luxury accommodations. As well, navigating the murky waters of Medicare and Medicaid regulations can be overwhelming.
Heck, I'm an attorney myself, but even I wouldn't have the time to delve into all the laws and regulations regarding care of the elderly and Medicaid and Medicare. So I said to myself, why reinvent the wheel? Cheryl knows this stuff backwards and forwards. I'll be happy to pay for her services. It'll be well worth it, and just rely on her professional expertise.
Care managers also act as an extended family member, going along on doctor's visits and just keeping seniors company.
Monitoring, just trying to develop a relationship of trust, but also trying to make sure things are going well, and usually staying in touch with some relative who lives out of the area, because they don't know, and they trust me to make sure things are going okay.
Here in North Carolina, professional care managers have been in business since the early 1990s, but they are not regulated. They are not required by law to have a license or any specific training.
It's an unregulated industry, totally, so literally anyone could just hang up a shingle.
Chris Urso of the North Carolina Division of Aging says despite the lack of regulation, there have been no complaints filed against care managers in the state.
The fact that it's not regulated also has a positive side also, I think, because the care manager, there are no restrictions or guidelines on what they can and can't do. So whatever the family and the care manager agree upon, you know, they can do it if that's what they want to do. They don't have any restrictions like a Medicare social worker would have.
Urso says it's important to put your agreement in writing and be specific. How will you communicate, and what will you do in a crisis? To find a good care manager, Urso says, requires doing your homework.
The first thing you probably want to look at is their education, their experience. You know, if they're a social worker or a nurse, look to see if they belong to any professional organizations, because most of those professional organizations have ethical standards that they pledge to uphold.
But for people like Larry Gerst, getting the help his mother needs is worth whatever it takes.
Oh, it's tremendous peace of mind that she's being looked after. It's like, as I mentioned earlier, it's like a weight being lifted off my shoulders.
To find the right care for your aging parent, contact the North Carolina Division of Aging in Raleigh or the National Association of Geriatric Care Managers. You can find links to these agencies at our website at www.unctv.org/ncnow.